All right. Should I start? Should I start? All right. Welcome and thank you for joining us at this listening session for the search for the next Chancellor of UC Merced. And just for your information, we have some lunch boxes in the back, so feel free to grab one or two right now for your friends, or you can do it at the end of the session. You can also do it now. You can enjoy your lunch during the session. So my name is Larissa, and I'm the student representative on the committee. So our purpose today is to hear from you regarding what you're looking for in the next Chancellor. But first, I will share a brief overview of the search committee and search process. And as a reminder, this forum is being live-streamed and recorded and will be posted online. So the full committee list, as well as other important information about the search, can be found on the search website. This website is chancellorsearch.ucmerced.edu. It's an extremely helpful resource for you to find out more about this process. And the committee will be chaired by President Napolitano and includes 5 faculty members, 3 from UC Merced, 1 from UC Irvine, and the chair of the system-wide academic senate. So there are also staff, student, alumni, and foundation representatives on the committee. I'm the graduate student representative, and Eric is the undergraduate student representative. And as we all know, there are midterms at this time, so Eric, unfortunately, will have to leave at some point because he has a midterm to take. But thank you for being here to support us. All right. So we also have 6 UC Regent representatives. Their names are posted online as well. And also in attendance today, we have a number of representatives from the UC Office of the President. Also joining us today are the representatives from the search firm Isaacs & Miller, who are assisting the UC Office of the President on a national search. So the 5 faculty members on the committee will conduct an initial review of all applicants and nominees, and they will submit the full committee not fewer than 5 promising candidates. So the committee will first evaluate all the nominations. They will have the opportunity to make nominations themselves. The committee will interview candidates. We will solicit the opinion of interested groups, which will be done in structured formats, such as listening sessions, such as this one, as well as informally as appropriate during the search process. So the committee will be mindful of the university's commitment to hiring women as well as underrepresented minorities. So complete its evaluation and advise President Napolitano, who will then make your recommendations to the UC Regents for consideration and approval. So here is the timeline. This is the anticipated timeline for the search process. We anticipate that the search will conclude by the end of the academic year. The committee will spend September and October learning and listening to your opinions. Then we will define the role and produce a position description by November. Further, we will focus on building and winnowing the candidate pool from October to January. Then we will conduct interviews and make our recommendations to the President from March to May. The chart outlining the search steps and search processes can be accessed on the Chancellor search site. So you can always get back to this timeline and see where we are at this particular moment. So today is not your only opportunity to provide your input and feedback. This is very important to remember because we would like your continuing feedback. So all members of the community are also welcome to complete an online survey sharing your perspectives on the Chancellor search and what you're looking for. So all of these comments can be emailed also directly to the Office of the President, and nominations can be submitted to our search consultants at Isaacs & Miller. So it's important to know that all of this information is available on the search website. So you have the website where you can make anonymous submissions. So if there's anything you would like to share, you can share it anonymously and confidentially at the links provided on this presentation. And at this time, I will pause to see if you have any questions regarding the search process. All right, so you can also interrupt me at any time and ask me questions further if you have any questions. And so right now, we would like to hear from you, and we would like to find out what it is that you are looking in the new chancellor. And some of the questions that can be guiding our discussion today may be, what will be the fundamental differences at UC Merced 1 year from now, 3 years from now, and 5 years from now? Also, how can you measure success? How do you know that the new chancellor is being successful? What organizational activities would you like to see sustained or enhanced on campus? Which ones should be initiated? Also, are there more subjective or informal measures for determining the success of this person? And with this, I would like to open the floor for discussions. And if you would like to speak up, there is a mic. Or if you can also raise your hand, we can bring the mic to you if it's more comfortable.
Hi, everyone. So this is your time to share, and I really encourage you to take a moment to really voice your concerns or opinions on what you hope to see within your next chancellor, whether it's more student engagement, the kind of programs that you've benefited from, or the kind of programs that you would like to see that could potentially come up as an initiative. So please, please, please voice your opinions.
In what way is it important for alumni to participate in the designation of the next chancellor? As you can see, the grim reality is that many of the students don't attend, right? Because they don't know what it entails, right? They don't know what it means to choose a new chancellor. Can you define what it means to choose a chancellor for alumni? In what way are they participating? Mm-hmm. In what way is it important for them to participate in this process?
You mean for students or?
For students, yeah, alumni.
Yeah, so basically we have undergraduate student representative and graduate student representative myself, and we have these listening sessions when we listen to opinions of our respective groups. That's why today this meeting is for us to hear to your voice and see what it is that you are looking for in the new chancellor. That's why this, right now as you're talking and voicing your concerns, we're taking extensive notes, and then when we have applications of the people who are applying for this position, then we will be looking at your needs and your concerns. So that's how your view is taken into account.
Can I just add on to that? So you do have an alumni representative on the committee, which is important, on the search advisory committee.
Does that answer your question, or do you still want clarification? Okay.
Yeah, and at any point in the process, students or alumni, any members who are interested, they can post their comments, which are anonymous and confidential to this link. We're also looking at this, and this is how you can also contribute to the process.
And if you have thoughts you want to share today.
This is your chance.
I'm a graduate student, and one of the things that I've noticed that's going to be fundamentally different about UC Merced, not only 1 year from now, but 3 years from now, is that we already have a very large undocumented student population here, but a lot of the students that are coming out, especially because deferred action for childhood arrivals was put on hold, is that a lot of them don't have work permits. So it'd be really important for a chancellor to really sort of identify how they can better support both undergraduate undocumented students and graduate undocumented students once they are unable to work, or if they even began this process without being able to work. How do you give them funding, like fellowships and stuff like that, to really help facilitate their success?
Can I ask you a question about that? So when we're going through looking for people, what would you want to see on a resume or a CV of someone that would give you confidence that person would be able to manage that particular issue?
Yeah, I think for something like this, somebody that's potentially really informed about identifying different funding organizations that don't necessarily require immigration status to be part of the requirements. So for fellowships for undergraduates and funding for graduate students. So it's somebody that's really strong in the funding department, I think, and has diversity training or experience working with very diverse groups.
Would you also want them to have experience particularly with placement of undocumented graduate students somehow? Or so like if you were, in other words, actually having done it, would that be something that would matter for you, that they were at an institution where they took care of folks?
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. I would love to know about somebody who's doing that, because that would be very, very helpful. And I think especially as our students are trying to identify what do they do post bachelor's, post a graduate education, what does that mean for them to be able to identify career tracks? And just what can they do with their degrees? You know, we don't want to put them in school and then not provide funding, but then not help them identify what they can do career-wise post a bachelor, post master's, or PhD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
It's actually a point of information for people to look, is on November 12th, the Supreme Court is going to be hearing the arguments for the UC challenge to President Trump's DACA ruling. And so do try and watch it if you can and see what emerges. And then we can talk more about what needs to be done depending on what happens. So it's fantastic you brought this up.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Jar Shai. Nice to meet you all. I have a question that's in return to the first question. What will Merced be like 3 years or 5 years from now? So as of currently, we have the most diverse population and in the highest percentage of black students on campus, which is 5%. In the coming years, that percentage will hopefully increase and grow in its numbers. And one of my questions was, or one of my striving goals was for a chancellor that can relate to the specific concerns that are being relayed by the black community here and actually follow up to fruition on those concerns. And how will they help the retention, how will they help increase, retention and awareness to other populations or other communities, other than Merced community. So how can we do more outreach to black communities and how we can bring them to campus and do more retention and focus on keeping them here. So that's one of the qualities that I would like to look for in the future chancellor.
When you're talking about, don't want to jump ahead, when you're talking about retention, you mean keeping the students who enroll in, but also recruiting new students. But are you also talking about retaining staff and faculty as well? Is it everyone, or is it, you see what I'm asking?
Right, so it's a spectrum. So it's
Right.
from staff to students, faculty, volunteers, whatever it may be, everybody. We want to promote more outreach so that we can increase our outreach to these communities, and then we want to increase our retention rate so that we can keep
Recruitment
them
and
here.
retention.
Right,
Gotcha. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Yesenia Coril, and I'm the director of the Campus Advocacy, Resource, and Education Office, specifically focusing on the prevention of sexual assault, dating, domestic violence, and stalking. So I think it's really important to make sure that the new chancellor has the courage and has the awareness of this subject matter, especially right now with recent updates to the Office of the President updating the policy regarding sexual assault, sexual harassment policies, and knowing that this chancellor really has to also have the courage. I was at a leadership meeting a couple of years ago, and someone made a comment about somebody should muzzle the chancellor from speaking. And this wasn't an open meeting, other senior leaders, other leaders. And so I think I say that comment because we need to have somebody who's courageous to talk about sexism, to talk about not saying things that are bullying to other people, because sometimes bullies prevent people from speaking up. And so I think you need to look for qualities that really showcase that people are navigating the world with a lot of courage and a lot of dedication to these types of issues for staff, faculty, and students. Because of the fact that we're a small campus, if I hear some comment like that, maybe other people, I was able to talk to that person because of who I am. I had the opportunity to, address that situation, but I know other people probably were maybe discouraged from speaking up regarding a sexual harassment or another instance, right? Because they hear and people laughing about comments like that. So I think really being mindful of the fact that we need somebody that can really ensure that this is not just under the Chancellor's office, not just under one department, but it's a community campus effort to stop these types of crimes from happening. So that's what I wanted to go ahead and mention. I have another quick thing that I wanted to just incorporate is the importance of having language accessibility. So someone that's empathetic and knowledgeable about the importance of knowing that if we give access to information in English, we should do it in other languages, because if we're able to give education to a parent, we're changing generations, because then they can continue to promote education with all their children, not just their first child. That's it.
So I'm going to sound like a parrot here a little bit. What would be the things we would look for in somebody's background or resume or CV that would indicate to you that you would have some confidence in them being successful in this, particularly in the climate issue?
So making sure
because that's
that,
a broader picture.
Yeah, so
than
people that have either worked in the field, people that have joined committees, individuals who have written about this subject matter, people that have done work groups at the national, state, or local level.
So if I can paraphrase you, you would want somebody who's actually done something, not
Correct.
just talks about something.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take a sandwich.
Hi, my name is Sophia Lee. I am a second-year transfer student here at UC Merced, and so partially what I really would like to see is somebody as a chancellor, you're making institutional decisions, and so part of that is increasing visibility to non-traditional education routes. And so a lot of things that happens here is when you make that institutional, either deciding what gets said during Bobcat Day or what gets said as an institution, you start thinking about students that have been here for 4 years, rather than students who have either had to drop out of school and return, or have had to go to community college or have had other difficulties. And so in having someone that has had experience and is open about non-traditional, just educational pathways is something that's increasingly important, because that first step of visibility, that first step of that email from a chancellor, or that first step is what makes people starting to make that connection. That is really important to having students in retention rates. So what that looks for a CV and resume is someone who's had an experience, who perhaps actually is a transfer student, had a non-traditional pathway, or has had experience in their family, or has openly spoken about their own experiences and difficulties and how they've grown about it. Because that's one of the first key ways where chancellors actually will connect to students, is that open resource of saying, hey, I've gone through something similar. Either I've struggled with mental health, I've struggled with these challenges that you're also facing. So being open in that first email, which many times, I know a lot of times professionals fear that, oh, it reflects badly upon their own career, whereas if in this position where you have so many students relying on you, part of that is also being open and being open to reach out and understanding that's, like Yesenia mentioned earlier, that first step of an institutional change of an attitude that brings about an environment where people can talk about it and can reach out for support.
Thank you.
I have read the 2020 project report and the next phases after that. UC Merced has great potential for growth. We have lots of land to expand on. I believe it would be crucial for the next chancellor to bring Merced to that potential. I also believe we should have the chancellor have projects such as private/public programs that further UC Merced schools, such as STEM, such as, say, partnerships with corporations, such as Boeing, Honda, programs or partnerships that not only fund our schools, but also allow students to get jobs right after college. And I think it would be great for the next chancellor to have experience in that, or like to develop that in our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, back here again. I'm sorry about that. Just another thing while I was looking, some of the organizational activities that I think that should most definitely be sustained and enhanced, and also probably initiated here, is ones that preserve our diversity population. So we have programs like the FIA Lux and Afro Hall and Afro the organization, and those those organizations actually do outreach and retention within themselves. So if the chancellor was somehow more tuned to helping LLCs grow and enhancing their outreach and their retention rates and the initiatives that they have set, that's something that I would also be looking for in a chancellor. And thank you.
Wait till you get the mic. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Just to emphasize something that he said on diversity, to piggyback off of that, diversity as in a sense, not just racial diversity, financial background diversity, levels of language, your background, and welcoming that in your research fields, how much of like someone's experience, as I said before, like educational pathways, as well as just your background as well.
Can I ask a question about those two questions? Do you feel like where those different, let's call it identity issues, intersect, is there infrastructure in process and developing that really creates a connection between the different diverse communities, because the students are certainly connected across the different communities? Are you headed in the right direction and you need somebody that will expand on what's in progress, or do you need, you got a walkway and you need a bridge?
So I can speak
bad analogy.
personally on transfers in the TRV center that we have here, is that we were making really great steps and boundaries, but there's still a lot of roadblocks that happen in the ways where you stall, and that's personally where we're at, because that is right now we don't have a formal director. We're at an interim director. And so having that stalls, having those gaps, for a transfer student, 1 year means half of our career here,
Right.
which means that 1 year can make or break someone's career, whether or not they actually finish their bachelor's degree, or even if they finish their bachelor's degree or even decide to go on to a higher education.
Right.
So for me personally, it's ensuring that we have those gaps covered, and that doesn't mean that program itself stalls,
Right.
It's like it is currently.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elena Swan. I am an alumna from 2013, and I am a recent staff member over in Environmental Health and Safety. And I just would like to see an emphasis put into safety and research safety, as our campus has grown immensely, especially in the research field. We have new labs happening all the time, and a large population of undergraduate research happening. And I'd just really like to see an emphasis put on expanding in a safe manner. Next year we have a high containment facility opening on campus, and that's going to add in whole new possibilities. And I just want to make sure that from the top we have safety as a priority.
Did you want to follow up? Will Richmond, do you want to follow up?
And then I also wanted to finish, answer your question, but also finish my other one. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
So back to what she was saying again about the diversity, we do come from different backgrounds, and we do come from different life circumstances. So a chancellor that can intimately relate with those things would also be a chancellor worth looking for. But also, to finish my last question, which programs are organization that we should have initiated on campus? So we've been, I'm a part of an organization that's trying to bring a few D9s to campus. And so one of the things that we're really looking for is those Black Greek life clubs, because those open up the Black communities to a whole different world of the college experience. So those are another things that we are looking for. And thank you. And then I did answer your other question correctly.
Yeah.
The first question.
I don't remember which one it was.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Maria, did you want to say something else? Okay.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Rojas. I'm an undergraduate student. So what I would like to look like in a chancellor is that they put the students first before like funds. For example, like the student meal plan. I really don't like it. I'm a second year, and last year I was fine with the meal plan. Like, I had enough funds to eat, but this year I feel like students are struggling. And I heard that last year when they made the decision to change the meal plan, they changed it because students weren't eating enough. But I feel like that's not true. Students here with this new meal plan, they have certain swipes. And at least last year, if students ran out of money, we were able to donate to other students. And students here, if they run out of meal plans, they have no other choice but to pay with their actual money. So I would just like to make sure they put the students first before making the decision. You know, like, I heard that the reason they changed the meal plan was for the 2020 project. And we are the ones living under these conditions. So I just want to make sure you guys think about us before. Because I would rather have a better living condition than a new building. So yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've heard that before, and it's been noted, just to respond to that.
Hello again. I was just going to say, listening to everybody and thinking back, that it would be really helpful to have a new chancellor who has experience. We're growing really, really quickly, and it'd be really helpful if the person that we're looking for is somebody who has experience with the company that has, or an organization or a previous university that has grown as quickly, or that has really upper management experience, because we're experiencing a lot of growing pains, like with the meal plan, with the bus transportation services, with mental health access. And a lot of that is just institutional programs that require a strong leadership to roll out in more of a seamless sort of process, especially as 2020 is sort of coming in the horizon.
Can I ask you something about that, Maria? There's actually a skill called change management. So maybe somebody with some practice and skill in change management as it applies to an academic environment. Is that?
Yeah, I didn't know that's what it was called, but
Yeah.
that would be very helpful. I think especially because we're trying to become an R1,
Yeah.
and we're also opening all these new buildings, and there's
Yeah.
just a lot of change going on, not just in the research front, but in our living conditions, our students' health and well-being, that we really need strong leadership from somebody who has this experience with all these transitions and managing that.
I just learned that term myself.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I think you had another question back there.
Yes. This is Tabesh Zaidi. I'm a second-year PhD student. And it seems like when I came to the university, we looked at the library. And my assumption was there was more funds going to be allocated to expand the library, especially books. And that hasn't happened. It seems like now there's more revenue being put into ebooks. I think they're fantastic for undergraduates, but when it comes to the graduate students, they're not very well used, because if you're looking at 4, 5, or 10 books at the same time for the same argument, it's almost impossible to look at the screens that we need to open, or to share if there's a presentation going on. So we are at the stage where we are contributing to patents and trademarks and research that would be beneficial for the university. So I would like to see the new chancellor offer some more insight and some more resources into expanding the book volume that we have, because this is almost like a high school library, not a university library, especially a UC library, where research needs to happen. So that would be my point.
May I ask, are you in the humanities?
Yes.
Okay. I've heard that from colleagues, faculty colleagues in the humanities.
Can I ask, how is the utilization of interlibrary loan working? Is it function for you, or is it like you get the book in 2-3 days?
Working is kind of rudimentary, because it takes anywhere from 10 to 14 days to get, and sometimes it's almost impossible to meet the deadlines. We're reading anywhere from 3 to 5 books a week. And so if you have that many books coming in, it's not almost on time. And sometimes they get canceled right in the middle of the process.
Okay.
And if we look at all the books that we need to buy, it's almost $1,800 to $2,000, and that's almost impossible to buy.
Great, thank you.
I do have to head out soon, so I appreciate you all being here. But with that being said, I won't take up too much of your time. Go ahead and ask your question.
So just to add a little bit something on what Maria said earlier of change management, and so as a public health major, what it's really concerning for me is as we grow in student population, our bike lanes, our lanes, we're not as well set up as, say, UC Davis is. However, that's a population size that we aspire to be. Our population lanes are not, just our transportation lanes, are not going to hold up with that. And so a big part of managing change is actually looking at feedback of the implementation of change and the actualization of how students react to it and if students react positively. And so actually getting that feedback, so someone who is really centered on feedback. And so if we see that on someone's resume who is, say, good at change management, someone who's actually taken feedback and acted upon it as well, and can speak from personal experience whether or not that's been successful or not.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brenda. I just wanted to say that I think that in order to find a chancellor who's actually going to relate to the community, I really believe that this chancellor has to be a person of color. I really believe that this chancellor has to be Black, Latino, Latina, Indigenous, someone who is actually going to relate to the population that we have here at UC Merced and the community. I believe that if this person is really going to be able to do their job and be able to talk to the people in this community, they have to embody the different identities and overlapping identities that everyone else has to this moment talked about, but also their identity within themselves and who and what they affiliate themselves with. So I think that in order for them to actually relate, they have to also be able to be part of the community with us.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Andrea Sanchez. I'm a third-year undergraduate student, and I just really want like the chancellor to be like prioritizing mental health, especially because I used to go to CAPS a lot, and now I'm not able to because there's just like so many people that use it, and like I've had to outsource. And luckily, like I do have like a pretty good therapist outside, but outside of campus. But like I feel like the chancellor should prioritize mental health because it's like so important, and I think that they should also be like emotionally intelligent and be aware of the different mental health struggles of different communities on campus, different groups, different like marginalized groups, like especially like if they're intersectional, like if they're like low income, if they're queer, if they're indigenous, etc. Like that affects like how you're going to perform here like so much, and that has just like such a great impact on your time here.
So what would be the things on somebody's resume or CV that if you looked at it, you would say, okay, now I have confidence this person will be a good fit for this issue? Is there anything you can think of that would be, oh, that's a good indicator that this person's going to be good at this?
I think if somebody's like has like some sort of like awareness of mental health, I don't know what that would look like on a resume, like somebody that maybe has been part of like committees that have like been concerned about like mental health or just like marginalized groups in general. Like I think that would be like a great indicator of that.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a little bit about that? So,
yeah, sure.
So I heard maybe two pieces to that. A chancellor who themselves would recognize some of those intersecting needs, but also potentially counselors that would understand
Right. Yeah. I
the
think that would also be
particular
important.
needs of marginalized communities.
Yeah, that would also
Yeah.
be important. Like if the chancellor could prioritize like getting staff that is part of, that are part of those communities, because that makes it so much easier for people to relate to them as well. That would be great. Yeah, would love that.
Thank you.
So I'm getting the main theme from the people and the students here that the priority of the chancellor would be the actual students that make this university what it is, and that will continue to have a great legacy, because you can grow and you can expand, but the students actually make UC Merced what it is. So the priority of the chancellor would be to make sure that the students and the undergrad and upper grad, that they have the resources, that they have that sense of belonging here. And I noticed that the fact that we are growing and the fact that we are expanding, your attention can be on so many things and so many directions. And I think that overall, you can balance expanding and keeping your eyes on what the students need. And just piggybacking on some of the other comments that I've heard, there are so many different protests and different things that have been happening on campus that I felt like were being silenced, being muzzled by the campus. And these are real students. These are real students who are experiencing life on campus. We need a chancellor that will allow people to be able to speak, because having your voice heard is one of the major things that we need, even going outside of a college campus, going into the real world. You know, we want these students to be able to go into politics. We want these students to be able to go and apply to these different things. Yes, go ahead.
Are you able to give us some more specific information?
Okay, so there was a couple incidents where students had created had started a protest over a specific club, and a lot of the attraction, it brought a lot of attraction, and a lot of the students felt like they were silenced, and a lot of the students didn't feel free to be able to voice their concerns. And even there were, something that I experienced was 2 university professors that were released. I'm not sure all the details, but they were released, and they were both Hispanic. And they were sociology professors. And so the students held a silent protest in front of one of the professors' office. And it didn't seem like it went through. Our voices didn't seem like they were heard, because the students, where they felt like they had professors that they could relate to, that understood, there were people of color, and that felt like, okay, what we're learning is actually manifested in our society, and we could understand it, and it made learning fun. Okay, these professors made learning very fun and very relevant. And then those 2 professors were released. So it's those moments where we have gems, where we have people in our community, where students feel like we're accepted, where students feel like we can relate and we can grow together, then those gems are dismissed.
I saw that video, by the way.
Thank you.
So thank you.
So, can I, if I said that any new chancellor has to understand students and has to show experience that they have prioritized the demands, the needs, the calls of students, is that what you're saying Merced needs at the moment? And that includes diversity, it includes all the many elements that you've talked about now. So is that, if I put it into one sentence, is that the sort of thing, or what am I missing? Yeah, that's better. What am I missing if I said, oh, so we need a chancellor who can center students, who can prioritize student life and student concerns and student academics? What? So it's just to get some more detail, not only from you, but from everyone.
Yeah, I would say that if you were to scale it, student body is the top priority, top. Everything else falls under that. And it wouldn't mean that, we're not putting enough attention toward those things. It would just mean that when students are the very top priority, all those things must meet the expectation, because the students are then engaging with you guys, and they feel and they have that excitement to be able to come to the community, come to UC Merced. Then when they're alumni, they'll feel that excitement to come back and help. Students are the very top priority. Yeah.
So what would be the markers or the things on someone's resume or CV that would, if you looked at it, if we say, here's the new person, and you look up their CV and you look at it and say, wow, I think I have confidence in this person. Mm-hmm. What would be the experiences or the demonstrated accomplishments that would lead you to, when you see it, go, wow, they really heard me. This is really what I wanted.
Yeah.
And you might say, I have no idea, and that's perfectly fine, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it has to do with just their character. You can have that conversation with them, but manifested on a paper. You can see that they have community engagement. They've done things within different marginalized groups, different low income, just had experience working with these people. And then they can carry that experience on the campus.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. Can I add that when you guys were asking, like, what do you want to see? I think this new chancellor really needs to prioritize diversifying the hiring, the people that are being hired. So you can't just rely on 1 or 2 professors or 1 or 2 staff members or 1 or 2 grad students to connect with all of the students. We really need to be diversifying our faculty, our staff, our graduate students. Anybody who's dealing with students really needs to be more inclusive in who we're hiring. And I think that's really important because we have like a really high staff turnover here, and grad students talk about how we're ill-prepared to mentor our very diverse students when they come to us with all of these problems, but they don't feel like they can talk to other people. So I think having a chancellor who has experience really diversifying the workforce and the people that work in that organization, you know, especially in higher academic sort of settings, would be really important, so that it's not just them being responsible for that thing or just a few professors or staff members, but it's really working as an organization as a symbiotic sort of relationship process where we're being heard because we're hiring more diverse faculty and more diverse staff and providing resources for our diverse students. And training is really, really important. You can't just hire diverse people and throw them in there and assume that they're gonna know what to do with other diverse people. It doesn't work that way. Well, at least in my experience, it hasn't worked that way, but it's really providing all the resources and training for these diverse people that we are hiring, so they don't leave because they feel overwhelmed or underprepared.
Do the undergraduates, is there a culture here where the undergraduates think of this as one of their top graduate destinations as well? Because you can organically diversify very quickly if undergraduates go to grad school here.
Yeah, so I'm not sure
Or is
about
that
other
encouraged?
undergrad. So I actually got my bachelor's at UC Riverside, where also Riverside now is the second most diverse campus in all of the UCs. And for us, like, it was really having, I heard about all the great staff members and the faculty members and how we really cared about building something together that would shape how we view academia in the future. So that's why I came to Merced.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our students here are very, very motivated to be involved not only in research, but in growing professionally. And if we really want this to be where they want to come to grad school, we need to make sure that we provide mentors training on how to mentor diverse graduate students. My advisor is great, but we always see other like roadblocks that other advisors have, or we run into situations where she might not know what to do and doesn't know who to turn to. So if you want to retain grad students or promote grad students, we need training not just for us, but for our mentors on how to deal with us too. Thank you.
Just to say as a little, no, to everyone really, is that, you know, UC Merced has the highest percentage out of all the UCs of students going on to graduate education. So if you're an undergraduate in here, go and add to that percentage.
I would say that we do have a really high percentage of people going to higher education, but if you look at nationally and within the UC system, a lot of people master out if they go into PhD programs, or they don't go into academia, or they're not provided information about what other career plans they can, or career paths they can follow, instead of just going and being a professor once they're in higher education. So it's really providing resources to be informed, I think, because putting them in grad school is great, but if you don't provide resources to help maintain them in grad school and help them succeed, there's no point, they're just gonna drop out. You know, it's a very stressful process.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Maria, are you referring to on our campus or our but maybe it's both, our undergraduates from these underrepresented communities who are going on to grad school elsewhere? Are you also referring to them mastering out?
Yeah,
or a need on our campus specifically?
Yeah, so maybe not on our campus specifically, but I'm the Climate Diversity and Equity Officer for the Graduate Student Association. So I talk to my representatives at all the other UCs and people who are underrepresented members of different groups that have gone to other national programs, and we talk about how, you know, there's not all these resources that we can sort of access. And it's like, even I have had thoughts where I'm like, oh, maybe I should just master out. What can I do with this degree? You know, it's really stressful. And like, I can't go see CAPS because they're very booked. You know, who do I talk to?
Right.
My advisor is not a therapist. My advisor is my mentor, right? So it's just providing resources to facilitate our going into grad school or professional school or whatever we want to do, and then succeeding once we're there is important to me. I don't know about everybody else.
I know our graduate dean does have a focus on professional development and looking at that. So is there anything specifically that's a gap that?
I think Dean Zatz does a fantastic job,
Yeah.
but she's very invested. I don't know how that looks at other UC
Oh, I
campuses
see.
or in
Okay.
other universities. Like we said, she's just one person and we're just one institution, right? So it's really making systematic changes that don't go, because a lot of what happens is that programs or initiatives may get stuck in certain departments and don't really go school-wide for support. And I think that's really just identifying what gaps we have and then making sure everybody gets those systematic resources available to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've clapped a couple of times.
Do you want to add to the?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you for having me up here. So my name is Emmanuel Hargrave. I work with the housing department and also was part of the Chancellor Advisory Board. So I guess like one main thing, if the Chancellor or next Chancellor future to become, we just become more involved with the students. I know the Chancellor does have like a 15-minute speed round of talking with the students, but probably just have like more activities to like engage with the students. Because if you ask some of the students who the Chancellor is, they might not know or might not even know what the Chancellor position does. So just having them out like either community events coming down or to like RA programming events to come down, just to more interact with the students themselves. So they can be more familiarized with the Chancellor, what the Chancellor does, and really understand like the whole position itself. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions from y'all?
Well, I mean, it's my constant question. What would you look for on a resume or a CV that would indicate to you, if I say, okay, here's the name of the person, you look at the resume and go, wow, this person's exactly responsive to what I was interested in. What would you look for to indicate these kind of connections and interactions with undergrads or grads?
I think Tony's saying if you were in our shoes.
Yeah, what would
and
you
you're
look for?
screening candidates, what should we look for?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Thank
In that case, I'll probably like look deeper into the past itself, but not like the achievements they got this bachelor's degree or this arts thing, but more like their community events, like, oh, they're helping out with these people or they was involved with this connection, just to see who they really helped to get to their position and not what they achieved to get to their position.
But you would want some actual demonstrated interactions of some sort, like I held town halls on a weekly basis or something, right?
Probably not like town hall.
Or whatever.
But like volunteer with their city.
Okay.
Like, oh, I helped with the demographics and help like.
I got you.
Even like a community cleanup park.
Gotcha,
Really show
gotcha.
they're like more with the people than just with the affiliation of itself.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
And take a sandwich on the way out. I think you came in before we talked about them. There's boxes of sandwiches back there.
We still have some time for more comments. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Miguel, third year environmental engineering undergrad, and on top of what everybody else was saying, I would also want a chancellor who's here for the long term, not someone who accomplishes their 5 goals in 4 years saying, I'm out. I want someone, who says, okay, I've done these 5 things, let's see what we can do next. And I just want someone who's there for the long term, and also someone who doesn't succumb to the political correctness in, our society. Recently we've had, a certain club wanted to invite a certain person, but everybody kind of said no. So I think we also need to take into consideration that this school isn't just one-sided. We accept all views, and if we succumb to political correctness from the national scale, it'll kind of diminish where we stand on free speech.
So how many years are in a long term for you? Is it like a decade? Is it like?
I know for the previous 3 chancellors, we've had Tomlinson Kesey, I might be butchering her name. She was here 7 years. Chancellor Leland 8 years, so somewhere within that range.
Okay.
And I'd like to compare it to, the presidency, at least 2 terms, right?
And if I'm interpreting your political correctness comment right, what you want is somebody who's committed to free speech.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have concerns about student safety. So I'm concerned about, are we protecting the students? So there's been, in other UCs, there's been, emergencies. I believe it was 2 years ago, last year, that a police officer was shot outside of UC Davis, and their alert system only alerted 1/3 of their student population. How are we, making sure that our students get the alert in case of emergency like that? We had a incident in 2015 where a student stabbed 3 other students, right? How are we protecting our students, making sure that the systems we do have in place work? And what are the procedures for, making sure we're safe, and for police officers or any other medical people like ambulances, vehicles to get in here? What are those procedures, and basically how are we going to make sure that they work?
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yes.
So it sounds like you're talking specifically about things that relate to violence, but there are also instances where because we're a public university, we have people come onto our campus and espouse things that make our students feel unsafe. So do your comments relate to that at all?
In that case, I'm more specifically talking about emergencies, so like active shooter, terrorism. When it comes to the other case you're responding to, or you're mentioning, I don't think to me, it's not really of a concern. I believe in the free speech argument that the other person was talking about previously before me. We could just ignore that. We're adults, right? We know what we believe in. We know that if we don't believe in that, we're just going to ignore them, right? My concern is physical safety of the students, protecting them from harm to avoid an area. We have wildfire, right? It's another system that students use, but it's not adequate to emergencies of active shooter. We need a chancellor that assures there's programs and systems that protect us.
So you would want somebody that, and correct me if I'm not paraphrasing you properly, you would want somebody who actually has a demonstrated experience in creating the unique safety infrastructure necessary for a broad, diverse student body. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to jump in. I just want to push back on that a little bit. So it's not just physical safety. Physical safety is very important, but free speech does not mean that we should provide a haven for hate speech. We have a lot of marginalized populations on campus, and a lot of them with their intersectional identities are even more vulnerable to things that are said on campus from different members. And psychological distress is a very real thing. It's not just me getting stabbed that can hurt my health. It's just me being distressed and anxious, and we have a really high rate of suicidal ideation. And people who just don't know how to handle a lot of things. So I think we really need a chancellor who prioritizes not just physical health, but also psychological well-being. Goes back to the CAPS issue. But I think we really need to make sure that they understand the issues that impact our most vulnerable populations and build activities and systematic safeguards to really help protect them, because that's what makes our diverse campus so great.
Absolutely.
And that's probably amplified by not having some of that support in the surrounding community, right?
Yeah, we are a very conservative community, and even trying to access resources in the community is really hard for staff and faculty who have access to cars and more of an income. So it just compounds the lack of access that some students have. So it's really making sure that if we are going to have very diverse students here, which is great, we provide resources that they can access routinely for both physical and mental and all of their holistic well-being.
Thank you. All right, so it looks like we're running out of time. We would really like to remind you that your feedback does not have to end here today. We would like for your continuing feedback. You can always go on the website. There are links where you can leave anonymous and confidential remarks and concerns. And thank you for making time today and sharing your voice. And with this, we would like you to invite to take lunchbox, take 1, 2, 3 for your friends, please. And thank you.
We don't like to waste.
Exactly.
I want to thank Larissa and Eric for their work moderating this. So,
Thank you all.
yeah.
Yeah,
We'll do
thank
our
you.
best for you.
Oh, he's gone.
There is another student session at 6:30 tonight, so please do tell your roommates and all the people you give the food to that they could come back, and there might